A friend in need's a friend indeed. A friend with a weed is better. Well, Kyle, I don't got any of that for legal reasons, but I did come up with a list of 7 potential centers that the Canucks can target in a swap for Brock Boeser. Let's get into it. It's Beggsy and it's Bowen, and you're listening to Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and apologies for my singing voice, but we welcome you to today's episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, Canucks writer and part-time credentialed media member for Daily Hive Vancouver. And before we dive into the show, we want to thank you for listening to Locked On Canucks, your team every day. Subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Today's show, we're going to talk about something that Kyle brought up on yesterday's episode, and that was trading Brock Boeser for a third-line center. We chucked out the idea. We didn't really have any answers for you. I got the answers today. But first and foremost, Kyle Bowen, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Chilling, drinking coffee on the second cup already. A little gray outside, which I don't really F with, for real, for real. Again, my name Kyle. That's Trevor Beggs. This is Locked On Canucks. It's not a show about us. Speaking of us, we love you. Yes, the listeners, the fans, the viewers. We'll get your comments at the end of the show because we save the best for last. I can't believe we're doing this, right? Brock Boeser for a third line center. I don't think it's that far off from possibly being a type of acquisition the Canucks look for, because again, next season matters. Next season matters, and they want the most complete team going into next season. Now, Beggsy, that's probably, a thing every organization says, but we're talking about a team that's traded for Hronek. They're up against the cap. Next season really matters. They want that complete team, and they do need that third line C.
Yeah, and I think there's some important context here when we talk about a third line center. Again, this is the idea that it's not necessarily someone who you think of as a third line center. The idea that I had going into this was, Brock Boeser is making $6.65 million for the next 2 seasons. He almost has negative value on the trade market because of the glut of wingers. Is there a center out there on a team who has a contract that's maybe not as favorable with some term that could potentially be somewhere around a 1-for-1 swap? Maybe the Canucks add a little, maybe the other team adds a little. So that was kind of my idea going into this. So I think a lot of the guys I'm going to mention here, most of them, you might not think of them necessarily as third line centers, but they are guys who got some terms. So when I was kind of looking this up this morning and doing some research on it, I really searched for guys who are making more than $3 million a season and play center, obviously. So let's get into it. And the first guy I have on my list here is William Carlson of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, Wild Bill, he's an OG Golden Knight. He has 51 points in 78 games this season. His scoring has dipped off, the past few seasons here. He's not the 43 goal player he was 6 seasons ago. Really is a solid middle six center who plays a power play and penalty kill. There's 2 reasons why I think Vegas might trade him. 1, Vegas seems to trade everybody. And 2, William Carlson is now 30 years old and has 4 more years left at $5.9 million. And he has a 10-team no-trade list. Now, most of these guys I mentioned also have no-trade clauses as well, which is worth noting. But, Kyle, is there any chance the Canucks could trade Brock Boeser for William Carlson?
I think so.
And would you want to do it?
I would want to do it, for real, because I feel as if it could only happen if Vegas, again, a team that trades everyone, disappoints early in the playoffs, and they need to shake it up. And I don't know, maybe they didn't do a lot of scouting on Brock Boeser, and they still view him as, that 30-goal scorer, that 40-goal scorer. I could see something like that happening. And bro, I'm just looking at the dude's stats. First of all, 6 years ago, that's when Vegas played their first season. 6 years ago, that's when Carlson picked up 43 goals. Since then, he's got 24, 15, 14, 12, and 14 this season. So the scoring has dipped, drastically. I could see a move like that happen. I could see that happen. Besser's a little younger too. Maybe you don't have to throw anything in because of that. I know he gets paid a lot more. Dude, that's a hockey trade. It's
100%.
It's still a bit short-sighted for a team like the Canucks to go ahead and acquire a 30-year-old with term. But again, we're talking about your Vancouver Canucks, where next season really, really matters. And this is the type of weird stuff that I think could happen, especially if you need to complete this roster. I don't think Niels Amon is the guy they want as their third line C. It's just the truth.
No, no. And here's another reason why I think Vegas could do it. And it's actually going to bring me to guy number 2 on this list. Vegas actually has some decent center depth at the NHL level. They got Jack Eichel, William Carlson, Chandler Stevenson. Then I've got Teddy Bluger in the organization. He plays a bit of center. And guy number 2 on my list is a guy I mentioned yesterday, Nicholas Waugh. So Nicholas Waugh, he is 26 years old now, so at the same age as Brock Boeser. He re-signed in the offseason a 5-year, $15 million deal. He is definitely more of your prototypical third line center. Again, the stats, the numbers aren't necessarily there, but he's playing some, and again, he's a really solid guy in his role as a third line center. Pulled it up quick here. Yeah. So in 61 games, he's got 13 goals and 29 points. I mean, third line center numbers are there. That's great. I would imagine the Canucks. Here's the tough thing, right? Based on salary cap, you think the Canucks might have to add in a little sweetener, but this could be a hockey trade too. Again, you're trading Brock Boeser, who, even though he's had a down season, is a top 6 forward, for Nicholas Waugh, who, even though he's making $3.5 million less, is a third line center.
Yeah, he's a bottom 6 player, probably a premium type of bottom 6 player based on, what you've been saying over the last couple of days, the number, Vegas. I remember him being a bit of a commodity last season when there was a bit of a question if he'd stay in Vegas or not. It's I guess, like, deals with Vegas would be like a little harder to make because of the Pacific Division thing, but I think that stuff's a little overblown too. In a situation where you'd have 2 teams that had, again, disappointing seasons, I'm assuming that Vegas gets knocked out early and there's, there's questions about what's going on. I think when that's the case, when again both teams in the division are kind of up in arms about what's going on, I don't think they really look at the Pacific Division part of the deal being a roadblock.
Yeah, and especially if it's a hockey trade, right? Like, if the Canucks are a seller and they're just juicing the Vegas Golden Knights, like, that, maybe that hurts a bit more. But if you truly believe you're making a hockey trade and maybe it's one of those win-win situations for both teams, I think GMs might think a bit differently about that. I might jump ahead on the list here because there's actually one more guy. I listed 7
Okay.
guys here. One more guy who's in the Pacific Division, and it's Alexander Wenberg of the Seattle Kraken. So Wenberg's got 1 year left at $4.5 million cap hit, and he's got a 10-team no trade list. Now it's funny. I shout out to Hockey Stat Card. They're on Twitter. I get emails from them after every Canucks game, and they basically rank every player based on game score. And Alex Wenberg had the worst game score in the Kraken. Again, I was snoozing in the third period because that's how bad the Canucks were, but. Alexander Wenberg, he makes quite a bit of money, but again, he's a third line center. It's almost a bit eye popping that he plays almost 19 minutes a night for the Kraken, but he only has 36 points in 77 games. But again, the Canucks need to make a hockey trade like this, right? Maximize. Brock Boeser is probably going to do better in another environment, and they need some center depth. And again, you're probably going to have to get a lesser player who plays the middle if you're trading away Brock Boeser. And I think Wenberg kind of fits that bill here.
And alleviate some cap off of the Bucks. It's the more and more I look at something like this happening, and Wenberg's making what, 4.5, you're saying, for 1 more year after this one. So it's like, what, 2+? That's what Besser's making, like 6.5+ or whatever. So is a bit of a discrepancy there. And I don't know if the Canucks would have to throw in a feeler like that, but that's a trade that I think Seattle would be interested in too, because again, Boeser still has that clout, I think, around his name. I think he's still a sexy type of acquisition for a club. And dude, the guy's still a good player. I'm a true believer that Brock Boeser is one of those guys who just needs a change of scenery. And I think you have to be kind of hesitant when that happens. Like, oh, okay, this guy needs a change of scenery. That means, like, he's still a great player and we're just going to let him go. I just think his best years are away from the club. And at the same time, he's making too much. And this team needs to value cap space way more. And I could see, again, a deal like this happen, even if it's to Seattle. That kind of hurts, though. That kind of hurts because Boeser.
Yeah, Brock Boeser down the I-5 there. Ooh.
Down the I-5 next season, 37 goals. 36 assists, 73 points. Could see it happening. Actually, more assists, to be honest. Brock Boeser, smart player, knows what he's doing. He's good in the offensive zone. I don't think he necessarily creates space, but he knows how to find it. That's why he's picking up all these points. Still a good player. Just needs a change of scenery to, maximize his potential. And you mentioned it, I think, last week about how, you want to see him with Pedersen, but it's pretty clear that Tocchet does not want to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear at this point, like you said. It's we're at the home stretch of the season now.
Yeah.
Some guy named Cole McWard is playing for the Canucks tonight. It's like, now's the time to experiment. And yeah,
Yeah.
Brock Boeser has not seen the light of day with Pedersen. So if it's not going to happen now, I'm not sure when it's going to happen unless Taka decides to listen to some episodes of Locked On Canucks during the off season. Kyle, speaking of guys who have struggled, this guy's certainly struggled more than Brock Boeser this season. And he was a marquee free agent signing last year. Andrew Copp of the Detroit Red Wings. He has, after this season, 4 years left at a cap hit of $5.6 million. And again, when I talk about him struggling for Detroit, he's averaging over 18 minutes a night this season. He has 9 goals and 41 points in 77 games after being like over a point per game player for the Rangers in a short stint last season. The Canucks, you could argue they already got fleeced once by Steve Yzerman. Could you see them? Could you see Patrick Alvin, dancing with the devil once again here?
I think Andrew Copp, I've seen him play a couple times, and I know, again, he was a commodity last season. I heard Jeff Merrick talk a lot about Andrew Copp. I believe Drance talked a lot about this dude as well. Could be wrong on that. I think he is what he is. Like, is he struggling? Again, 41 points, probably gets like 42, 43 before the end of the season. I think he had maybe like 50, 51 points last year, 53 points. It's like he is what he is. He's just getting paid way too much. Way too
Yeah.
much. That's what happens in the offseason. And I don't know if the Canucks can do that. I don't know if they can, because he has I think maybe like 2 more years of term than Brock Boeser does after this season. Is it 2 or 3? It's just that's a bit way too much.
Boeser's got 2 years left and Copp
Yeah.
has 4 years left at
Yeah.
about $1 million cap hit cheaper. But again,
You know
like
what,
you
though?
said, he's overpaid.
He's overpaid, and those type of players, they work
But
on a
doesn't
more full team. Like, it works on a team.
100%.
It works on a team that's more consistent / in the race, a few pieces away. I mean, the way we're talking right now, we're talking as if the Canucks are like that too. Yeah, they got to trade for a third line C, that they got to round out their lineup. It's just more to get to the next step, man. And the Canucks are still that team that's scrapping to get into the playoffs. Look at what we're doing, bro. Look at what we're doing right here, man. This is what the Canucks have done to us, man. Bottom 5 team forever. And we're already moving the pieces to make sure this team makes the playoffs next season. Not our fault. I think what you and I are doing here is just siding with reality, okay? For months and months and months and months, and for the last couple of years, post-Canadian division, we went back on that whole, just rebuild, scrap it down, rebuild. And then, a month or 2 ago, we got the sign that that's not going to happen. So we might as well just buy in, bro. We might as well buy into this philosophy that, again, say it with me, people, next season matters.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it too, bro, is it's just so hard to move off of cap space. Like, if we're looking at trading Brock Boeser, you might have to take on a bad contract like Andrew Copp if you want to shake things up.
To
That's
make next
just the
year
way it
work.
goes in today's NHL. So I will say this, and I want to make this point while you were talking earlier, but Andrew Copp, doesn't he kind of fit the mold of like a Rick Tocchet kind of player though? Like, he's got some piss and vinegar in his game. He's got some fire to his game.
Oh,
Like you
yeah.
said, he needs to play with good players to be successful, but he just seems like a Rick Tocchet kind of guy, doesn't he?
He does, man. He does, right? Beauvillier, Andrew Copp, Connor Garland. That's a $16 million third line.
Oh man, so I do have 3 guys left on this list where, again, we're theorizing about guys who could be swapped for Brock Boeser, some guys with term who play center to kind of boost the Canucks center depth heading into next season. But before we tell you the last 3 guys on this list, we need to say that the NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Kyle, there's some pretty interesting battles going on in the playoff picture. Only a couple games left in the season. The Warriors and the Lakers. So the Golden State Warriors are in
Yeah.
sixth place in the West. They're avoiding the play-in round. The Lakers are seventh. I think it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch over the last couple of games. The Warriors should hold it down, but if you're watching the Warriors and Lakers and you want to, combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout, you can do that on FanDuel with same
Do it.
game parlays. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/lockedon. That's fanduel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
You're back. You're back on Locked On Canucks. Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs. Shout out to our sponsors and shout out to this conversation, man. We still got to go down this list. 7 players the Canucks could trade Brock Boeser for that would help this Canucks team look deeper going into next season. Look ready, look primed and ready, look full. That third line center position is so important for this team. And I think that makes the most sense for them to do a deal that involves Boeser for a player like that, because if they are going to get another defenseman in the fold, I think it's going to come through free agency. I think it's going to happen. I think they're going to take a
Yeah.
swing at like the best guys, but they're also going to take a swing at one more type of Ethan Bear type of guy. And I say that, and I'm not going to be surprised if that guy's Luke Shen.
Oh man, they're gonna reunite Hughes and Shen. Actually, I love Luke Shen, but maybe this is a hot take. But don't chase Luke Shen. Don't reunite it with Quinn Hughes. Those two this season did not play that well together. Luke Shen probably distracted people because he was throwing the body around. But
Yeah.
that duo together had like a 43% expected goals percentage when they were on the ice. And I think
Nerd.
that matches. I don't think Luke Shen was as sharp as defensively as he was last year. I just think he looked good because he was throwing the body around and he was better than most of the blue liners on this team. But
Yeah.
anyways, maybe that's my bold take about Luke Shen. Kyle, maybe you could tell me if any of these 3 candidates in a potential swap for Boeser, if they are bold choices. I'm going to throw out a guy who I don't know if he's a perfect fit, but he kind of fits the mold of what I'm looking for, and that's Jack Roslovic of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, I kind of waffled with this and said, why would the Blue Jackets want to trade for another winger? But they already got Johnny Gaudreau, who's 29. They got Patrick Laine. You add Brock Boeser to that top 6, and they got some centers coming up like Ken Johnson, Cole Sillinger. Maybe Roslovic, if they don't think he's part of a future, maybe that's a guy that they think they can move off of.
Maybe. I mean, you would think a team like that would keep a guy like Roslovic, and I think he's the dude that Drance was talking a lot about a couple years ago. I don't know. I just remember seeing one of the Vancouver folk.
I think he was talking about Copp and Appleton. To be
Okay,
honest,
there you go.
I thought it was Copp
Okay,
and
anyway.
Appleton.
This don't you think Columbus is in a position they're still retooling, rebuilding, even though they have Gaudreau and they signed him to that deal, and they may get a guy like Connor Bedard as well pretty soon here. Sorry to put that out. Don't you think, especially with Roslovic having 1 year left, that they'll just keep him, and if next year goes to crap, there's an asset they can have for the deadline. It's kind of harder to move a guy like Boeser at the deadline with that much cap hit. I don't know. Just don't. I see where you're coming from. And a guy like that would be so ideal, especially on the 1 year deal too. It would just be nice. It'd be nice because if it doesn't work out, you can get out of it, save some cap for next offseason. You're dreaming, bro. But I like it, man. The more and more we talk about this, I hope it happens.
Honestly, of all the names I put on this list, I feel like Roslovic is the least likely. Again, I guess my thought was honestly trading him for Boeser might make the Jackets even worse next season because they're going to go with like Cole Sillinger and Ken Johnson at center, unless they get Bedard, but they're not because the Canucks are getting him. So that's a moot point. Let's rip through the last 2 names on my list. This is an interesting one. So John Gabriel Pajot of the New York Islanders. Again, this is a team that Alvin's already traded with recently here. And, you look at the Islanders and they have some pretty decent depth down the middle. And I wonder why that is, Kyle. But they got Matt Barzal, Brock Nelson, Bo Horvat. Like those are all 3 NHL caliber centers. Pajot, I would argue, is a luxury asset for them. At the same time, he has 3 years left on a deal paying him $5 million a season. And he actually has the biggest no trade clause on this list. He has a 16-team no trade list. But it's quite a bit of money. But again, if you're trying to reshuffle things, I don't hate the idea of Jean-Gabriel Pageau as the Canucks third line center.
I don't hate it too, man. I don't hate it too. I think it's, well, first of all, 16-team no trade list for Jean-Gabriel Pageau. This guy is doing it, bro. This guy's doing it. Had some prime years in Ottawa and got what he deserved. I think Barzal and Horvat would make a deadly combo if they paired them up together. I don't know if they're really sprinkling their lineup like that, but if they do add another winger to the fold, I feel like they're allowed to do a lot more, and that's a team that has to keep their foot on the pedal. I'm sorry, as far as shaking things up and making things happen, because they're all in. And I wouldn't be surprised. Now, would a team be smart to keep shuffling the deck with Vancouver Canucks players to make things happen? I don't know, dude. I feel like the Islanders fan base would be just rattled.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine? That would the two like Horvat and Boeser were the two longest tenured Canucks going into this season. That would be quite the story if they both got shipped to the Islanders.
Yeah.
Here you go, New York. Enjoy the next 10 years of mediocrity.
Yeah.
That's
man.
hilarious.
Well, they've already experienced 10 years of mediocrity. They're just like us.
Well, I mean, in fairness, the Islanders went to 2 straight conference finals, so they've enjoyed a little bit more success. I mean, Anthony Beauvillier
way more.
Yeah, Anthony Beauvillier scored that Game 6 overtime goal against Tampa, biggest moment of his career so far. So, they've made some noise. Noise. Hey, another team who's made some noise over the past few years, while the Canucks have floundered, the Dallas Stars, who actually have a shot at winning the West this season. Figure that one out. But this is the last guy on my list. It's Radek Faksa. He almost fits the mold perfectly of a third-line center. And again, he's a guy, though, that is overpaid. So he has 2 years left, making $3.25 million. He has a 5-team no trade list. But the guy, he had a couple of seasons where he was flirting with kind of 30, 40 points. But since then, it's been pretty few and far between for Radek Faksa. So I don't know, man. I think of a trade like this, and I do just wonder if, I wonder if the Canucks would add, if Dallas would add, how it would actually work out. Because again, you trade Boeser for a 29-year-old third-line center who doesn't put up a lot of offense. Maybe give me your thoughts on how a deal like that might look if it happens.
Dude, I think maybe it's not Faksa, but dude, I could definitely see the Canucks making a move like that because they have to swallow the pill in one way or another. They don't have cap space and they need to shuffle the deck and they need a third line C. They might have to, trade Boeser, who's going to be like a 50 to 60 point guy, for a 20-point guy who can kind of give them something else on their roster. It's just, and then they'd probably just want to bank on Podkolzin or Höglander taking a step. It's just the way it is. We just went through 7 types of trades. I'm going to throw you a curveball. There's no way, right? There's no way that Pettersson gets choked if Boeser gets traded.
No, okay. I don't think so.
There's no way. There's no way. When we don't need him to be sensitive. I know they're human beings. It's 2023, right? That matters. You're a human being, and friendships matter. And he's allowed to get emotional if one of his best friends leaves. I mean, they've been friends for life. What if you left me? It'd be hard. But we are talking about professional sports, and we're talking about competitiveness, and we're talking about a Canucks team that just hasn't won. You have to be open to a lot of change and not be too sensitive to the fact we're kind of jaded towards the organization. But bro, I don't know, man. I could see that happening too, where it's like, dude, you better not trade my best bud if you want me to extend this summer. Could see it too, just the way it is. Because Boeser's still a good hockey player too, so it's not even like the best bud card. You could also throw in like, okay, so you want me to sign for this long, and now you're gonna trade one of the best wingers on the team.
Yeah. I see your point. I would say that if I were Elias Pettersson, I probably would have thought Boeser was going to get traded like 4 times already throughout his Canucks career.
True.
So maybe this is something you're already expecting. But again, I think, if Yeah, I do wonder what Pedersen's point of view is. Like, I honestly do, because the
Yeah.
team has a glut of wingers making too much money, and they need to move some of that money to improve other areas of their team. And that was kind of the point of this whole exercise. And Kyle, I appreciate you for inspiring me to get up a little early this morning and do some research on it. Maybe let us know in the comments, which of these 7 players would you like the Canucks to target the most, and maybe as a sub comment, let us know if you're out to lunch, if we were out to lunch or not. Kyle, let's wrap up on comment corner if you have some comments. But before we do that, let me tell you why I'm able to put bacon on the table for my family. I use
Okay.
Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all on Indeed. Find top talent with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Kyle, do you hate waiting in line? You hate waiting for stuff?
I'm a patient guy, yo, for real. Why do I deserve things first? It's okay. It's okay. There's other people in line.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, if if you're unlike Kyle and you hate waiting, Indeed's U.S. data shows that over 80% of Indeed's employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. One thing I love about Indeed is I can relate to them. Kyle, my wife calls me the Flash. I'm not sure why, but
Because
I
you
feel like
probably
I
don't
can.
last long. Because you definitely don't last long. That's why she's calling
Is
you the
that what
flash.
it is?
Dude,
No. Oh
it happens, man. You're
no.
married, comfortable. It's all
Oh
good, man. Just get it done.
no.
I get it. You don't last long.
Holy, dude, you just killed my buzz, man.
Okay. The flash.
Well, I was gonna say my wife calls me the Flash, and I feel like I can relate to Indeed because of that, because they have Indeed Instant Match. Candidates you invite to apply through Indeed Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in a search, according to U.S. Indeed data. And Indeed does the hard hiring work for you. Sponsor a job, and they'll match you with quality candidates whose resume on Indeed fit the job description right when you post. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/locked on and start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on. You get that, Kyle? Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Unbelievable job, Trevor Beggs. Locked on Canucks. Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, my favorite part of the show. Comment corner. More people did chime in on the whole Besser thing, and we also had somebody chime in on the JT Miller thing. And I think oh, it's not this person. Okay, but we'll start off with JDAC. Okay, I'm glad I pressed this button because again, Surrey JDAC. As long as this guy comments, I'm gonna be posting it on the show. Okay, great episode again. The Canucks definitely have a huge offseason coming up. A show in Surrey would be amazing. Maybe you can get that guy who was always dancing on 96th and 120th to stop by. Trevor Beggs and I are coming to Surrey. We will, man. We will. For real. We're going to bring the show to Surrey. And yeah, it's a big offseason for the Vancouver Canucks. I said it last week. They need to write a book or dedicate a chapter on this summer because we need things to work out. And when it works out and this team is having success in the playoffs and we win a cup 6 years from now, 4 years from now, maybe 3 years from now, putting it out there, they'll look back at what happened in the offseason of 2023. Next comment is from Sydney. By the way, I'm not a JT Miller hater. I think Sydney was commenting on the fact that Miller called out some players a couple days ago. And I think Sydney was just saying it's not a great look, in my opinion, as a teammate. Hopefully, he can carry his recent surge into next season. This team needs to make the playoffs. I will say this: I didn't look into it that much because I thought when I saw the tweet, I thought it was injury related. It was that whole JT Miller misses the breakaway, then he kind of went to the dressing room after, right? When I saw that, I was like, okay, maybe he's hurt, maybe he pulled something, whatever, right? But now people are saying that it wasn't injury related and it might have just been emotional. Like he was just mad and he left the bench early. And if that's the case, it's not that big of a deal because it's game 76 of a season that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But I will say, a couple days before this, you called your teammates soft. You get what I'm saying? You can't be calling your teammates soft and then doing that. You can't. You're one of the older players on the team. You got that huge deal. You gotta I know you're emotional. And we need emotion on this team. We need people to care. We need people to show that this is not good enough. But that is that is the definition of soft. It is. Miller, you got to be better. If that's the case, it's not the biggest of deals. I'm not gonna degrade the guy's character completely because I actually do like how much emotion he does show. It's nice. It's refreshing. Maybe some people think it's part of the problem as well because again, he's been part of this organization for quite some time. There's not a lot of success, but you got to be better. You got to show other ways that you got to show your teammates other ways that you care, and you just got to hold it together. Just sit on the bench for another 20 seconds and go off with your teammates.
Yeah, JT Billy, that's interesting. Honestly, I got a little bit distracted, so I closed my notes and I zoomed in my camera to read the comments, and I just noticed your nice fade, man. You got a great fade going on with that haircut. Good
Oh,
job,
dude,
good job, Kyle's barber.
Thank you, man. My barber is killing it. You can completely ignore what we just said about JT. It's not that big of a deal anyway. Let me talk about it for 2 minutes, and then Trevor can just go off talking about my haircut. Because the Miller thing, it matters, but it doesn't matter that much. It really doesn't, man.
I will say this: it matters more than the Canucks game tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh man. Oh man, dude. I saw something, bro. I saw something like, yo, the Canucks, are they playing in Vancouver? They're playing in Vancouver, right?
Yeah, second last home game of the season.
Yo, I swear to you, man. I swear to you, bro. Don't be giving Jonathan Toews any sort of recognition, bro.
100%. No,
No, it
don't
doesn't
do
need
it.
to
If you're
happen.
at the game, do not do it. Actually, you might have see the same tweet, Kyle, and I'm gonna paraphrase it here, but basically Justin Morissette, who is a Locked On Canucks alumni, I believe,
Oh yeah,
he
legend.
basically tweeted out that you don't have to start giving Jonathan Toews praise if he's about to retire. You can look just the other way. You can look the other way, just like he did.
Ooh, yeah, just like he did.
If you don't know what we're talking
Yeah,
about, you guys can Google the whole Blackhawks
Google
scandal.
it.
We don't have time to get into it because we do got to get out of here.
Oh, let me say
Locked
one
On
thing before you go.
Canucks.
Let me say one thing
Okay,
before you
yeah.
go because I F with. I know I can't swear too much on the show. I've been bleeping out that whatever, right? I F with Justin Morissette because this dude's a true hero in the city. Okay, I remember a
Yeah.
couple of years ago he went through it because he was arguing / getting in the way of some people who are doing some mean things in the city, and I think he got injured because of it. And he's just a stand-up hero. He's done a lot for Locked On Canucks as well. There's no Kyle Bound and Trevor Beggs doing this today without him. So you got to give people their flowers, right? We don't got to wait. We don't got to wait till Morissette, I don't know, wins an award or something. Thank you, man. Thank you for making our city better.
Yeah, shout out to Justin Morissette and shout out to you for listening to this episode of Locked On Canucks, your team every day. Now make your second listen game to game, Locked On NHL. Every moment, every performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across Locked On NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. We appreciate you listening. I'm Trevor Beggs. He's Kyle Bound. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Locked On Canucks.
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.